lazy to and huge families across the Jordan. We'd rather just stay here where the land looks like it'll support them. Remember? Now, early in the book, though, Joshua says, that's fine, but we got wars to fight. And so these 2.5 tribes did support the other 9.5 tribes. And that's why you see this interaction that you see here, is that this is the army of the 2.5 tribes, and probably several of their leaders, that was in Shiloh, still with the other 9.5. And so now he tells them, great, you've done your job, you've done what you were supposed to do, you supported the other 9.5 tribes in the battles that we fought over the last 40 years, now it's time to go home. Verse 5, though, it's interesting. He tells them that they've done their job, that they've done everything that Moses commanded them to do from the Lord. Now, what's the very next thing he tells them to do? Don't screw up. Verse 5, only be very careful to observe the commandment and the law which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God and walk in all his ways and keep his commandments and hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Why would Joshua do this? Remember what we talked about. The Levite cities were scattered around where no Israelite would be further than 10 miles away. And 3 of the refuge cities, if you remember, are on the east side of the Jordan and 3 are on the west side of the Jordan. So you have this huge circle. Maybe it's a control factor. Joshua won't have his eyes on them. I don't know. Maybe it was just a general warning that we should probably be heeding as well. But it's interesting that he tells them that because they didn't wait very long. Let's look at verse 7. Okay, he's already talked to the Gadites and the Reubenites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and he's blessed them and sent them on their way. But now look at verse 7. Now to the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given a possession in Bashan, but to the other half Joshua gave a possession among their brothers westward beyond the Jordan. So when Joshua sent them away to their tents, he blessed them. He singles them out and gives them a special blessing. Okay. And he said to them, return to your tents with great riches and with very much livestock and with silver, gold, bronze, iron, and with the very many clothes. Divide the spoils of your enemies with your brothers. Contextually, it looks like this particular blessing is aimed at that half-tribe of Manasseh. I could be wrong. I could be reading into it what's not there, but because he at this point he has singled out the tribe of Manasseh, and from what the commentators also said, it looks like this blessing was specifically in addition and added to the tribe of Manasseh. And I thought, okay, there, I knew I had some notes in here. Manasseh was the firstborn son to Joseph and Asenath, daughter of the priest Potiphar. Manasseh would have been born in Egypt, and the name means, forget all my troubles in my father's household. Let's flip over to Genesis 41 and 51. Start with 50. Now before the year the famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, born to him. Wow, grammar's everything. And Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. And he named the second Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Okay. Can anybody think of somebody special that came from the tribe of Manasseh? Down the road a little bit. Dom? Gideon. Gideon, who judged Israel for 40 years, if I remember right. Gideon was from the tribe of Manasseh. Okay. Now we start to get into trouble. They've just spent 40 years following Joshua around, doing what they're supposed to do. They've just been given a blessing. They've just been given a warning. And so now they take off. And what's the first thing they do? We're in verse 10. It's the first thing they do. They decide to build an altar. Now, the way that I read from the commentators is that they believe that they got to the Jordan and they conceived this plan and then got to the other side and built the altar actually on the other side. And we see that identified in verses 10 and 11. So, and they came to the region of the Jordan, which is in the land of Canaan. The sons of Reuben, the sons of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a large altar in appearance. And the sons of Israel heard it and said, Behold, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan, in the region of the Jordan, on the side belonging to the sons of Israel. Most of the time, and this is just kind of a side note, most of the time when we think of the Promised Land, we think of it ending at the Jordan. After all, we get these pictures, and especially as we grew up and got the Old Testament stories, that Moses sat there and looked down across the Jordan into the Promised Land and was never able to step on the Promised Land. Well, part of that, though, was on the east side of the Jordan. Moses was up on a mountain. He wasn't allowed to go down, but the Promised Land actually started where these 2.5 tribes settled. And so Israel, if you look on a map, Israel is on both sides of the Jordan. And that's where that comes from. The one thing I could not find, and so I have to kind of use some conjecture and some summarizing, is I could not find anyone that would give me a timeline between the time that they left Joshua and the time they built this altar. I'm sorry? Not long, no. Best case, okay, so you've got a large number of individuals, probably a good number of them had at least some of their family with them. They had probably a whole lot of animals with them, and they're traipsing from Shiloh back across the Jordan. And then they stop, and they build an altar. I'm guessing probably a few weeks. I have nothing to base that on other than that thumb in the sky that says, So it was probably, I think, 2 or 3 days journey from Shiloh to the Jordan itself. But that would have been slowed down again with the sheer numbers that are involved. Yeah, of course, I don't know how many people exactly were involved in building it. There's no indication whatsoever of any timeline that I could find. Yes. Yeah. Could very well be. Could have been even longer than that. We just don't get any hint of it, other than Joshua's still alive. So that's the only real timeline that we have in here. All right, so what do the 9.5 tribes want to do? What are the other 9.5 when this is noticed? And again, we're not told if it was noticed by Levites on that side of the river, if it was spotted by Joshua from Shiloh. We're not given those specifics, other than this was a gargantuan build. But what's the first thing that the other 9.5 tribes want to do? Go to war. Yeah. Does anyone besides me see that irony? Yeah. How many of the 9.5 tribes failed to do what God told them to do? And that was wipe out every living creature in their land. They wouldn't do that. Okay, some of them, from what we read, if you remember, wouldn't do that. Instead, they made them their servants. First thing they want to do is go to war there and kill their brothers. I mean, just, huh? Somewhere, somebody got some sense here. Yeah. Somewhere the cooler heads got in front of it, and they put an emissary together in verse 13 to have been a fly on the wall there when you've got 9 tribes. And again, I doubt that every single individual of the 9.5 tribes, we're not told exactly if it's these heads of these tribes that are ready to go to war, if it's the warriors that are tired of sitting around and want to go kill something. We just don't know. But yes, we get cooler heads come together and an emissary is put together in verse 13. Then the sons of Israel sent to the sons of Reuben and to the sons of Gad and to the half tribe of Manasseh into the land of Gilead, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, and with him 10 chiefs, 1 chief for each father's household from each of the tribes of Israel, and each one of them was the head of his father's household among the thousands in Israel. Okay, so I noticed 2 things here. First, Eleazar is going, or Phinehas rather, is going. That kind of hints to me that the Levites may have been involved in spotting it since their cities were so scattered. They would have been very, very close to where this was being built. And maybe they were the first ones to see it. But it's interesting that you have Levite priest heading up 10, not 9, 10. So if there's 10 princes there, what does that mean that one of those princes was? Yeah, the other half tribe of Manasseh. So you literally were going to have brothers going after brothers. Well, we'll find out the intent. It doesn't say just that it was a huge structure. We'll find out the intent that they had, though, in a few verses here.
Well, they claim that we're going to sacrifice on it. I'm not sure that's true, but that's what they claim. It's always very Tower of Babelish, where they got all these back home, they got all these animals, they got all these possessions, and they want to build a structure to show pride. And then my version says that they built an imposing altar, as an imposing as in like show who we are, what we do. Thus taking the power away from God, and they rely on their own self, kind of like the Tower of Babel. Well, this was the biggest fear, is that those 2.5 tribes were going to make their own nation on the east side of the Jordan, and that's why they had to react like they did.
Yeah. It's interesting that yours uses the word imposing because that puts a whole nother inflection on that word, especially where it was built. And if we're thinking in terms of that Joshua was concerned that they would build a whole separate nation, and they build this imposing structure on the edge of the Jordan facing the other 9.5 tribes, it kind of lends some of that thought process. Yeah. Yeah. You guys are getting just a little bit in front of me, but yes, absolutely. That's all right. Just a little. You're starting to rattle the heavens a little bit, that's all. Let's see. Okay, I've got a commentary from Henry. And it's a lot. I'm not going to read all of it, but I want to read through some of it. Let's see here. Okay. The war being ended and ended gloriously, Joshua, as a prudent general, disbands his army, who never designed to make war their trade, and sent them home to enjoy what they had conquered, and to beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and particularly the forces of these separate tribes who had received their inheritance on the other side of the Jordan from Moses upon this condition, that their men of war should assist the other tribes in the conquest of Canaan, which they promised to do, and renewed the promise at the opening of the campaign. And now that they had performed their bargain, Joshua publicly and solemnly in Shiloh gives them their discharge. Whether this was done as it was placed, not till after the land was divided, as some think, or whether after the war was ended, and as before the division was made, as others think, there was no need of their assistance in dividing the land, but only conquering it. Nor were any of their tribes employed as commissioners in that affair, but only after the other 10. It was not done until Shiloh was made the headquarters and the land was begun to be divided before they removed from Gilgal. It's probable that this army of Reubenites and Gadites, which had led the van in all the wars to Canaan, had sometimes in the intervals of action, and when the rest of the army retired into winter quarters, some of them at least made a step over Jordan. And I think you mentioned that a few weeks ago, Tom, about different seasons, and there was a season that you did not go to war. And so that's what Henry's referring to here, is that when it was not the season of war, it's a good chance some of these guys ran across the river and went home to their families for a short time. For it was not far to visit their families and to look after their private affairs, perhaps tarried at home and sent others in their room more serviceable. But still these 2.5 tribes had their quotas of troops ready, and Matthew Henry is saying approximately 40,000, which whenever there was an occasion presented themselves at their respective posts. He dismisses them with their pay. Okay, it's interesting that Henry interprets it this way, as that all of the animals and all of the spoils and that were considered their pay. And he asks a good question, for who goes a warfare at his own charge? Verse 8, return with much riches unto your tents. He dismisses them with a very honorable character, though their service was a due debt and their performance of a promise, and they had done no more than that was their duty, yet he highly commends them. Not only gives up their bonds now that they've fulfilled the condition, but applauds their good service. Though it was by the favor of God and his power that Israel got possession of this land, and he must have all the glory, yet Joshua thought there was a thankful acknowledgement due to their brethren who assisted them, and whose sword and bow employed them. Okay, how many days? Okay. Okay. That's, if anybody would like that, to read into Matthew Henry's commentary. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mentioned Gideon. Does anybody recall the story of Gideon? Gideon was called to war. And so he chose 32,000 troops, if I remember right, and God said, nope, that's too many. And God pared him down to 300, so that, again, it was God that was responsible for the victory, not Gideon and the Israelites. So yeah, it's a recurring theme here that God wants to make sure that we know that he's responsible for our victory, that it's not anything that we do on our own. It's not to say we don't put in our effort, and I don't mean to imply that, but it is God that controls that victory. Yeah.
One reason why when we pray for God's help and guidance, and the result may or may not turn out exactly the way we'd like it to, nevertheless, they turn out for good. We need to remember to go back and thank the Lord for the blessings that he has showered upon us.
Yes, indeed.
It's imperative that we not forget to be thankful.
Yep. Well, for all things, without a doubt. Okay. I've got this in a different order in here. All right. Now let's go ahead and read Phinehas's railing first. Beginning in verse 15. And they came to the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, to the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, thus saying, Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what is this unfaithful act which you've committed against the God of Israel, turning away from following the Lord this day by building yourselves an altar to rebel against the Lord this day? Is not the iniquity of Peor enough for us, from which we have not cleansed ourselves to this day, although a plague came on the congregation of the Lord, that you must turn away this day from following the Lord? And it will come about, if you rebel against the Lord today, that he will be angry in the whole congregation of Israel tomorrow. If, however, the land of your possession is unclean, then cross into the land of the possession of the Lord, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take possession among us. Only do not rebel against the Lord or rebel against us by building an altar for yourselves besides the altar of the Lord our God. Did not Achan the son of Zerah act unfaithfully in the things under the ban, and the wrath fall on the congregation of Israel? And that man did not perish alone in his iniquities. A pretty stiff railing. Yeah. Yeah. That's one little point in there that you can miss real easy, is that he tells them, hey, if you're building an altar because you think the land's unclean, come over where we know it's clean. Yeah. Is this any different than us? Do we ask first or condemn first? Flip to Matthew 18. I don't know why I have verse 1 on there, but I do. So, at the time the disciples came to Jesus saying, who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And then let's slip down to 15. And if your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. If he listens to you, you've won your brother. But if he does not listen to you, take one or two more with you, so that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every fact may be confirmed. And if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax gatherer. Truly I say to you, whatever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say to you that if 2 of you agree on earth about anything that they may ask, it shall be done for them by my Father who is in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst. And mine's a red letter, if you have a red letter edition. Those are the words of Jesus. Not exactly the pathway that Phinehas took, was it? Then for those that say, well, that was Jesus and that was the Old Testament, let's go to 1 Corinthians 5. Yeah. It's actually reported that there is immorality among you, and immorality of such a kind as does not exist even among the Gentiles, that someone has his father's wife. And you've become arrogant and have not mourned. Instead, in order that the one who has done this deed might be removed from your midst. For I, on my part, though absent in body but present in spirit, have already judged him who has committed this, as though I were present. In the name of our Lord Jesus, when you are assembled, and I with you in spirit, with the power of our Lord Jesus, I have decided to deliver such a one to Satan for the destruction of his flesh, that his spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Your boasting is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough? Clean out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, just as you are in fact unleavened. For Christ our Passover has also been sacrificed. Let us therefore celebrate the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people. I did not mean with all the immoral people of this world, or with the covetous and swindlers, or with idolaters, for then you would have to go out of the world. But actually I wrote to you not to associate with any so-called brother, if he should be an immoral person, or covetous, or an idolater, or a reveler, or a drunkard, or a swindler, not even to eat with such a one. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Do you not judge those who are within the church? But those who are outside God judges. Remove the wicked man from among yourselves. Okay, so we have some clear instructions here, but again, this is not the path that Phinehas took, is it? Phinehas condemned first before asking any questions. Immediately, what does that do to the leaders of the 2.5 tribes? I mean, I don't even have to ask for a show of hands for anybody in here that's been falsely accused before. What's your first response? I'm sorry? To defend your side, absolutely. My first response is the hair on the back of my neck goes up, and then I have to take a deep breath, and I go, and then I defend myself. So what did these tribes do wrong? What did the 9.5 tribes, well, I'm sorry. So the 2.5 tribes do take the back step, and then they respond. And the people said to Joshua, "No, but we will serve the Lord." And Joshua said to the people, "You are witnesses against yourself, that you have chosen for yourselves the Lord to serve him." And they said, "We are witnesses." Now, I want to stop a second here. Let's go back and take a look at the emissary group that was sent. Okay? Come on, Larry. Oh, no wonder. I'm in the wrong chapter. I apologize. I was thinking that doesn't look right, but I was in the wrong chapter. Okay. Okay. All right, verse 21. Then the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered and spoke to the heads of the families of Israel. The mighty one, God the Lord, he knows, and may Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or if it was in an unfaithful act against the Lord, do not thou save us this day. Okay, you see the way this argument is being set up? Now, if we did, okay. But I immediately thought of the argument my kids used to take when I had caught them and they were trying to defend themselves. If we have built us an altar to turn away from following the Lord, or if to offer a burnt offering or grain offering on it, or if to offer sacrifices of peace offerings on it, may the Lord himself require it. What did they leave out? I'm sorry? Well, it'd be tough to deny the fact they built this thing. The purpose. They took a left-handed denial there, didn't they? Yeah. What else did they leave out of here? There's nothing in there about that symbol of independence, is there? There's nothing in there denying Again, what we were talking about with where it was built and the fear that they would set up their own nation. There's no denial of that in this verse.
Like two different things. It's a combination of that, but it's also, I mean, that's the question. They were under the law.
Mm-hmm.
So were sacrifices stuff done by the Lord's tabernacle, which is somewhere within ancient, I mean, Jerusalem stuff was set up by them. So were they saying, in a way, we'll set up our own, it's too far away. I mean, when you get confused with this Jordan, apparently the Jordan separates them really to a moment. That's easy, you can see that in a minute too. And they want to get confused with their own people saying, hey, we're still in Canaan, we're still part of Israel, but yet it's Jordan, where the Jordan is here. So let's set up our own altar. We could offer sacrifices of the Lord, so everybody sees it, doesn't forget that it's way over there where we're supposed to be sacrificing. But then it's also this combination of, but we're self-reliant, we're prideful, we good, so we don't really need to be the, but it's a double side order, kind of, it's hard to see. And that's what you see here, like they're kind of flip-flopping between the two.
Yeah. It's not that far removed from Aaron's sons, whatever it is, and Abihu, Nadab and Abihu, who were struck down by God for bringing in a false fire. That's just not that far removed. Well, that's the accusation, and that's what they're sidestepping back away from, or trying to sidestep back away from.
They're saying, no, we're going to serve the Lord, but we will serve the Lord, implying that they have been doing something wrong or admitting it. They're saying, no, we're going to serve the Lord also. That's the way I'm seeing it.
What verse are you looking at?
Verse 20. And then you go to 21.
I think to go back to the question, I think, what was the, they were the law. So what was the process of,
The sacrifices would have been done by the Levitical priests.
right in one spot, by the Lord's tabernacle, like it says kind of in here, or was it every 10 different mile location you do anywhere?
Bobby, I'm going to have to defer to someone that knows more about. I didn't chase that down.
Right. And they just didn't want to go all the way to Shiloh.
Yeah.
If you look on the map, Shiloh is halfway into the country on the west side of the Lake of Jordan. Pretty good trip. And they just said, we'll set something up here and do our own thing.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's where the Ark of the Covenant was in Shiloh.
Okay.
Mary, if you back to my point, go to verse 23.
Okay. The response is a very left-handed response here. They're not standing up and saying, no, we did not do this. We're saying, what the response is, well, if we did this, then the Lord should punish us. One of those things where, okay, I'm not lying, but I'm telling enough of the truth that I want known, and that's all. That's kind of, I mean, the number of times I've had a similar conversation with my kids as they were growing up with this kind of structure. It's Verse 24, but truly we have done this out of concern for a reason, saying, in time to come your sons may say to our sons, what have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a border between us and you. You sons of Reuben and sons of Gad, and have no portion in the Lord. So your sons may make our sons stop fearing the Lord. What's the lie there? partly. What's the lie, though? Exactly. Said that they chose to live on that side of the Jordan. God did not tell them to live on that side of the Jordan. And they start off that with, "For the Lord has made the Jordan a border between us and you." Well, yeah, God made the Jordan, and yeah, it's a border, but he didn't.
Saying someday your kids may look at it that way and not treat our kids like we're our God's chosen people. I don't understand why we don't just believe what the saying is. It says that the rebellious in them accepted it, and then they praise God that they weren't rebelling and moved on from there. They made the altar surely as a reminder to us that the Lord is God. They came in, they made the accusation. The Reubenites and Gadites denied the accusation, explained their motives. Their motives were accepted. They didn't kill them all. I don't understand why we don't believe it.
But at least they get a lot of reasons. God tells you what to do, and mankind says it's good. It's a better idea. Here's a
Yeah.
little better we can do to make it a little more streamlined. And it's anything else like baptism, the word literally means sufficient water, but sprinkling oil is good. Same thing still about baptism. It was not good. Same thing for the history of mankind. Same thing they're trying to do. God told them to do. They have a better plan.
Yeah.
We got a better idea. It's good.
As far as we know, they didn't like it.
They what?
This is the classic saying coin two sides, because you had the 10 tribes saying, we don't want you setting up a separate country, and you had the 2.5 tribes saying, we don't want to be seen second-class citizens. It's the same argument, just from 2 different points of view.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what they discovered and uncovered. They still didn't make it right to build a temple to, even to God, if it was to God. I'm not sure, I'm going to comment on this, I'm not sure.
No, actually, I'm in the wrong area. I had told you to get 2 chapters, and that was what you.
Okay.
That's what's making.
Thank you.
You guys were looking confused.
But
I
if
got 2 chapters.
but if they say they're on the altar, you can see both parties, both sides jumping to the wrong conclusion based on the same set of facts. And this is what happens between people.
When you start off with an accusation instead of a question, this is the road you end up going down.
Well, this is what a mediator often has to uncover. And this, I think that's what Phineas did.
Yeah.
Is he uncovered that they were both worried about the same thing, in a sense.
So verse 26, is it a proclamation or an affirmation?
My translation is different. So we decided to build this altar not for burnt offering and sacrifice, but as a reminder to us and you, and to our descendants who follow us, that we will honor the Lord in his very presence. With burnt offering, sacrifice, and presence of peace. But as a reminder to us and you, and to our descendants who follow us, that we will honor the Lord in his very presence. Burnt offering and sacrifice and presence of peace. Then in the future your descendants will not be able to say, our descendants give them right to the Lord.
And that's a second one, too. Let's put them together, though, real quick, before we dismiss. 26 and 27, and yes, mine's I think it's a New King Standard, but, or New King James Version, but. Therefore we said, let us build an altar not for burnt offering or for sacrifice, rather it be for a witness between us and you, between our generations, that we are to perform the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings and with our sacrifices. So which is it?
They want to be more, but yet they want to have their own thing.
It's,
And isn't the only thing that gives the body free to do that is like, we just have this here to remind y'all that we're still for y'all, and remind us that we're still for y'all. But it's not needed, it's not a vital thing.
This was a reasonable compromise. You still worship at Shiloh for primary worship, but here is a secondary altar. It was a compromise, and Phineas accepted it.
I think it's the big and imposing part that probably throws it off. That'd be another thing, why you make it so glam, so big and whatever, you know, what you need. That's where the vital part kicks in and throws you off.
yeah.
I guess the point is there's sometimes room for compromise, even on worship, which was the most important thing.
What I see here, though, is Phineas is almost forced into a compromise.
Well, unless he wanted a war.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you close, Bobby? Thank you all very much.